Hi everyone, greetings to everyone who's watching us in India of the day and even our international viewers from other cities. Welcome back to yet another exciting session at IMAI's Marketing Conclave. Our next session has three great personalities coming from three various backgrounds, and this is what makes the session really very unique. I would like to call upon our moderator for the session, Nandagopal Rajan, editor, New Media, Indian Express. Hi Nandagopal. Our speakers,
Hi.
Amarjit Batra, Managing Director, Spotify India. Hi, Mr. Amarjit. And
Hi.
Neha Dhupia, Indian actress, model, and now she has under her name a successful podcast series going on. When
Hey everyone.
Hi Neha. With such three great personalities, the only thing which we can accept is a fireside chat. And without any further ado, I would just like all our audience to know it's Neha's birthday and she's specially come here to meet you all. So Neha, wish you a very, very happy birthday from me and from the entire team of IMAI.
Thank you very much, everyone. It's so wonderful. I feel like a birthday is all about like doing amazing things with amazing people, and that's exactly where I am right now.
Super. Nandagopal, over to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Latika. So, Neha, I will start with you.
Yeah.
And you have made this wonderful transition from being an actor, a model, on to becoming a podcaster, and a very successful one at that. And what have been your learnings? And has that transition been natural?
I mean, I feel like the word transition always means that you're leaving one thing behind and then you're going on to another thing. I'm not doing that. The one thing that I'm trying to do is just trying to do multiple things. And I feel like we're in 2020, and if you're not doing like at least six things that you feel like, okay, this is what I'm getting, either my recognition or validation or whatever from, then you're not doing enough. So I just felt like, I have been acting for many years. I was, into modeling before that. And then I just realized that I wanted to actually start off as a producer. Now, key thing as a producer is you think you want to like dabble around in a space that A, you're not spending too much out of your own pocket, and B, and the most important thing is you're creating your own content that people will consume. I was lucky enough to, at the time that I was doing that, I was lucky enough to meet, Rishi Malhotra from JioSaavn. I'm sure Amarjit knows who he is. And we were literally in a parking lot and we were waiting for our cars. We didn't know each other. We got talking and he was like, you talk a lot and most of it is entertaining and fun. How about you have an audio show? I didn't know whether that was an insult or a compliment. I took it up and he's like, I leave for New York at 9 p.m. If you can come back with a pitch at about 6 p.m., I'll see you at this hotel lobby. And 6 o'clock I was there and he's like, what do you want to do? I said, I have lots of friends who happen to be extremely famous. So how about we have like a casual conversation with them and put it out? It went with the intention of not over-intellectualizing it at all. And boom, we had a show. We called it No Filter Neha. And we had enough and more people consuming it. And that's when I realized the magic of A, great conversations, and B, and most importantly, the magic of audio.
So Amarjit, as far as India is concerned, it's a very video-heavy, video-friendly market. So do you need people like Neha to woo the audience to the audio space? And audio, though it's growing, it's not really the in thing in India still. Is that right to say? And also the fact that is audio still going to be very similar to what TV is in India, very heavily entertainment-oriented, or is it also going to go the way of news? For instance, the Indian Express has a very popular podcast called Three Things, but you don't see a lot of news podcasts in this market.
Yeah. No, I think happy birthday, Neha. I think that's
Thanks, Amarjit.
This is I think you have a great show going, and there are amazing shows happening in the world and in India also on audio now. I think the market is already there for audio in India, and people think that the market is in the future, but I think there are enough people who already listen to audio in the market. I mean, of course, a lot of it is music, and music streaming is, of course, much, much bigger. But if you look at podcast in a big way, I think it's just growing very well. Of course, US, it's actually growing much, much bigger, I think. And I would say that the market in US has arrived. in a big way with some amazing stuff happening there. India is not very far off. And I think for creators, I think like Neha is a creator, I think that for creators, this cannot be a better time to be on audio right now, because this as a medium differentiates from the video in many ways. And as we know, I think over the last few months, we must have seen, I think over the last couple of years also, video has actually just taken a huge boom in this market. But I think if you look at the, sheer kind of progressiveness of the medium of audio, because in audio, you don't need to literally, be glued onto it, completely physically. You are free to do other things. You are free to work while you're listening to music. You're free to work out when you're listening to an amazing podcast. You can do household chores through, whatever while you're listening to podcasts. I think there is the amount of capacity of work, things that you can do in this market while on the audio medium is tremendous. So I think as a market, on the listener side of it, I see this booming in the next few years. On the creator side of it, I think it's very well said that I love to talk, and I think Indians love to talk overall in a way. So I think there are probably a million creators out there who are amazing and who love to talk, who have strong opinions or who have strong stories. I think those are the things that I think needs to come out. And I think at Spotify, we have been, kind of wanting to go that way, because this is not a market that is kind of going to just go out and bake on its own. Somebody's got to go out there and put the ingredients out there to bake the right cake. And I think at Spotify, we are trying to help create the market. I think we're not the only people out there. I think all the other streaming players or all the creators, all of us together have to get it done. The second part of your question about what kind of content, I think stories telling and interview formats are typically the biggest formats of podcast. But news is a very big global. News and news analysis is very big. And in fact, radio globally used to be also still very big on news. India radio is not big on news, but I think podcast has a potential on that side of the story. I think there are a lot of amazing stuff already on Spotify or other platforms related to news analysis or geopolitics or something. I don't know how that will pan out. It all depends on what kind of content you're creating and with the intention to create something unique. You're not going to copy a format of a TV or somewhere else to just, paste it on audio. You need to do something what the three things was done. And that's why it is popular. So make it quick, make it snappy, make it regular. And I think people will come back and listen to it. So I see that also opening up in a big way. There are enough genres where we can explore this on.
So Neha, you are somebody who has dabbled with multiple mediums. You have had a direct interaction with the audience when you were, walking the ramp, for instance, and you have done movies. You are now in audio. So what are your learnings in the audio space, and how satisfying is this in comparison to the others?
My biggest learning in any space, not just audio, is that if you don't give the audience that something that interests them, they're not going to consume it. So if I'm walking the ramp and I don't give them a beautiful outfit, they're not going to be there for it. If I'm a part of a film and it's not a great story, they're not going to come to the theaters to watch it. And if I am doing an audio show and you're like, oh, we don't have an audience, or we don't have enough listeners for it, it's only because what I'm saying may not be interesting enough or relevant enough or important enough to them. So across all mediums, I feel like, you've got to give them great concepts, great conversations, great, you have to give them something to consume that interests them. Would I put on a podcast that doesn't interest me? No. Like Amarjit also said, would I even listen to a song that I don't like? The answer to that is no. So no matter what medium you're with the Indian Express, if you give them news that they don't want to consume, the paper is not going to sell. I'm just going to state facts as they are. But as far as audio is concerned, it's a much harder market to break into. There's absolutely no doubt. Is it a growing market? Yes. That's the exciting part about audio. So, just a few years ago, I had nothing except music that I was consuming over my phone. But now it's like Ghana, Spotify, JioSaavn. Apple, everything, and it goes beyond just music. So it's great, and kudos to the platforms across who are putting across content, whether it's sport or just mere storytelling or even music wise. I'm a mom now. There's so much for me to listen for my child. Like parenting podcasts, is everything that's there online and things that interest us. And for the ones who are questioning that, oh, हमने ये audio show किया और अभी चल नहीं रहा क्योंकि market is not small, market is small. I think that's a bit. We just have to look inside and say that maybe our content needs to be improved. That's where the answer could lie. And together we can like grow this market much more.
So. As we're talking about content, are seeing a genre of original storytelling coming into the the audio streaming space now. And if we look back, I remember times in the 80s when we used to have these movie soundtracks which used to come on radio. I'm old enough to talk about it. But is that something that you see happening in the podcast kind of a space where you have big names like Neha sort of enacting, giving their voice to something that's an original audio show?
Yeah, no, I think it's already happening. So I think if you look at globally, I think we have recently signed up with people like Joe Rogan, Michelle Obama, Kim Kardashian show is coming on Spotify. So I think in a way, globally, I think those things are already happening. In India, like we said, we are in the growing stage. I think we are trying to, get the right stuff out in the market. Spotify for India is Spotify India is about Spotify for India. We've been kind of thinking along the lines of what do we bring to the table, because there's so much to do. I think you cannot do everything in one go. It takes time. So we have focused on bringing the right stories from India. I think unique stories, because our country has some amazing diversity and some amazing stories hidden out there. At Spotify India, what we are thinking is what can we do? And I can give you some examples. So on the cricket side of it, I think if you must have heard about this show called 22 Yarns. This is about Gaurav Kapoor, interviewing some of the best cricketers and people from, statisticians, even umpires and so on. So the idea is to give amazing anecdotal stories, and they're really, really interesting. And that has now gone to season 2 and so on. On the other side of it, we have picked up stories from defense forces, where Gulpanag has done a show for us, which is about special mission, which takes about all stories from defense. Because there are amazing stories hidden out there, and not everything people know about it. You hear some news, you hear some bits and bits, but what exactly is happened behind the whole story? We have recently done a very unique podcast called Detali. It is about the life of a transgender. That community in India is actually not treated very well, but I think how to bring their story out in a unique way. And that podcast is doing very well. It's a very unique this thing. We just launched yesterday a show with Harsha Bogle called Mission ISRO, which is I think that people don't know that India, when it kind of came out of independence, we were not a rich country, and we are not yet completely there also. But we had a space program going in 1950s, which I think is a great story, and it's like a dream story. And to hear that, I think can inspire so many people to do well. And not only telling stories for India, within India, I think the Spotify has about 300 odd million users globally. So it's about taking these stories around the world, because let people know what India is all about. I think, and that I think is what is kind of motivating all the team at Spotify in India to bring us. Of course, we have the advantage of having such amazing podcasts from globally also coming and doing very well. But I think a lot of our journey right now is focusing on that content. And of course, we are always looking out for great hosts and looking for that. And I think you will see that over the next 1 or 2 years, some exciting stuff happening around that.
Neha, so you have these big names or to be precise, these big voices that drive this audio industry across the world. And in India, we still don't have a lot of the big names. You are there is Kalki, there are a few others, but is that important to have these big names come in to sort of move people to the audio sector, audio segment?
I mean, I feel like in anything when you do with entertainment, it's important to have people who are crowd pullers in their own genre. So, like Amarjit mentioned, 22 Yans, and Gaurav's a really good friend, and it's very relevant to have someone like a Gaurav talk about cricket, or it's very relevant for someone like Gul to talk about a show which is based on the armed forces. So I just feel like, yes, and to go beyond, if we just had, because we're talking about the future of audio, we also had Karina, who had a show when it comes to women. We also had Karan, who had a show called Calling Karan. And people or the market, it doesn't matter what platform you are, if you're talking about the audience and making it large enough, the market is expanding. To answer your question, it's always beneficial when you have people who have a name that's big enough, and they come because they get their own audience, they get their own fan following, they have a way of people getting more interested, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. It always helps. Having said that, even if you have a new person who comes in and who's having an interesting conversation, again, as long as the content is interesting, like Amarjit mentioned, he did go across, right? You also said that you have the show based on a transgender, and I'm sure that because of the show and the audience of the show, everybody got to know the host of the show. So it works both ways, and as long as we stay focused on growing this. What's also interesting for me, as far as audio is concerned, is that there was, there are podcasts in which there are OTT platforms are buying those stories, making shows on them. I would love, like I started off with No Filter Neha, or we started off with No Filter Neha in season 1. And now we've also got like a little bit of a visual side of it, where we cut promos and everybody knows who's coming. So it's kind of like, interbreeding to a certain extent. And I mean, I would love to see successful podcasts then ending up becoming like, or being consumed as television or OTT properties as well. So as long as the industry works together, it's great. Everything grows and everyone grows.
In fact, I don't mind adding.
So Neha, I was just listening to. Yeah, sorry.
Because I think the
sorry, Amarjit. Please go ahead.
No, I think great points. I think just want to add one interesting element to that is that I think in a market like India, I think it's not also about known people or hosts who are stars in their own ways sharing stuff, but I think it's about anybody who has an amazing idea or an amazing thought and has being a subject matter expert of something, can come and do that. I think it's like the business world. I mean, if you look at today, there are amazing big companies out there, but there are also those amazing startups, which are coming in a big way. So I think for that, in the market to really boost, I think the getting down to getting creators in this market who are potentially have an idea and giving them the tools to do that. I think that's the second set of thing moving up. I think it's not about this or that. It's about everybody. I think in the end, in the end, everybody, because in the end, like you said, you're a host, but you're also a producer. Who knows? You would want to produce a show with somebody else tomorrow, who's just a new talent out there. And I think that's the beauty of this medium today. Because over the next 2 to 3 years, I think I can't. I'm really excited about what India can deliver in terms of, because there's immense talent in this country, but not that talent doesn't have the opportunity. If you look at music today, how many of our amazing singers got a chance to sing and become popular? No, because not everybody could sing for film music, Bollywood or the other Bollywood and so on. So in the end, a lot of people kind of having the talent were not discovered. So I think the discovery has just opened up not only in the music space, but podcast is going to change it completely. So I think it's going to be amazing.
Also, I feel, to add to what Amarjit is saying over here, I just feel that it doesn't really matter. Like if you look at like even people who are creating content just on their Instagram and social media, they've become influencers to like reckon with their voices, and people follow those voices and they're in millions. So it really doesn't matter whether you're, famous or you're a celebrity. Yes, of course, you bring your own sense of curiosity, your fans, your audiences. But the more important part, as far as all this is concerned, is, and when you talk about being a producer, and the reason why I also dabbled into audio is, it's I mean, I think it's still low risk compared to making, investing everything in if you have an idea and to put it out in film, because there's so much more time. And, like I have an idea of making another podcast and I'm just like, hey, I'm going to put it together and then I'm just going to go and then let's just go to the highest bidder. That's how a producer thinks. Do I have that much strength and encouragement from within to like do that with a story script? No, it takes much longer. So I feel like, it's, you can also have a lot of fun with audio. I mean, we've just launched on the 25th of August, we've launched season 5 of No Filter Neha, and it's great. Who knew that we could be doing this sitting at home? I mean, if I was doing a full, a full spread talk show, which was video and had a stage set, sound, audience, all of that, it was a completely different format. I wouldn't be able to do it. But here I am, I was sitting at home. I had my afternoons off when my daughter was asleep, and I was just like, hey, I need to do something. And I was like, we're already sitting on 4 seasons of a talk show, which is successful and consumed. So let's do season 5. So between July and August, I spent every afternoon working in the back end, the forefront, the script, the research, and boom, we've come out with another season. It's work from home for real. But if it was not audio, I don't think we would have been able to do it.
And also, Neha, is it also high value? Because, I was just listening to your show with Dulkar, and he opened up really well. He's not somebody who opens up. I, being a Malayali, know that. So are you also getting people to do much more than they would actually do in front of a camera, or say much more than they would
Should
do?
I let out one trick of the trade?
Yes, please.
All right. So, from season 1, I've been of this. So we would always get them into the studio and make a setting like, sofa, air conditioning, what they love. We would ask their managers, what do they love to eat? Like Ranveer Singh, the manager said, loves black coffee and Maltesers, like this thing. So we got like a bucket full of Maltesers, black coffee, kept the room cool. And then we would cordon it off, let a little bit of sunshine come in from one window. And then everybody else, the audio room was we never show the audio side of it. And then behind the audio side, they're like 12 people, my team, his team, audio team, all of that together. But when we're face to face, it gives them the feeling that it's just him and me, or, someone else, like another person who's come for this recording. One of the hardest people I had to be in conversations, really weird that you would talk about Dulkar, because I was like, what am I going to ask him? How's he going to open up? But then he spoke about everything between like his 2-year-old getting smashed in the face with dry poop in New York. That was his New York experience, to like singing songs for like Devarkonda and Rana Daggubati. He did it all. So, it's just about, the trade secret is get them cocooned into this room, make them feel like they're at home, pretend like no one's listening, and then just roll when they're not even ready. So, and then of course, you say, and then at no point are we putting out content that is not approved. Finally, we send the tapes to them, the edits to them, and they love it. So yeah, it's great, but it's about creating the environment.
Isn't video all about actors getting into a different character? And maybe in audio, you go more deep in your character. So I think it's probably much more natural. And I think what I've heard, I mean, I'm not an expert, like, not hosted or show, but what I've
Amarjit,
seen.
you're way more than an expert.
No, but what I've heard.
You're the expert above all the experts.
No, but what I've heard, thanks for that. But what I've heard so far is that, in a way that as soon as the camera is off, I think the people want to open up, and I think that's what I think is happening. And if you seriously listen to people, I think there are things that are shared on audio which you don't hear. That's why if you look at why audio is getting really, really popular, is because when you're listening as a listener also, it's a very intimate experience of listening something very personal, like somebody sitting next to you, the star that you cannot imagine, and they're saying something in your. So if you look at the best shows happening around the world outside of motivation and storytelling and all that. I was listening to this show on Hugh Jackman. I mean, amazing. I mean, the way he talked about, opened up and talked about even basic things like about which you would not hear about him in a TV interview. So in a way, I think that kind of a depth of openness I think is audio is happening. And I think kudos to all the hosts who actually make it even more interesting, because they help the guest open up in a very different way compared to what you do on TV.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you. Like, for instance, I'm going to quote Saif Ali Khan over here. We finished recording with him and he was just like, Neha, please don't play on caution. There are things I want to talk about. And I was like, what have we missed out on, Saif, after the recording got over? So he's like, I'm not even on social media, but I would like to comment about trolls, because I see it with, my daughter, my wife. I want to go back in. I want you to ask me that question. So I'm just saying what Amarjit said, you lead them into a place of comfort. You want, and they want to talk more and they want to share their ideas. And maybe that's a great way of looking at it. And the other thing, and secondly, most importantly, is that I feel, because we also, I may be a little obsessive, but I check the back end. I see when the numbers are going up and, how many streams we're getting at what time. And people's time off is when a lot of people go for walks, because people don't have time off anymore. I mean, apart from the lockdown, which a lot of people had a lot of time off. And then, we all got hit by the second crisis after pandemic. It's called work from home. So basically everyone's office moved into their houses. Their kids moved into their offices. So yeah, that's another conversation for another side. But people take time off and they go for walks. People take time off when they're driving and they're like, just in their own space. So a lot of content is consumed at that time, and you get, after a point, what music do you listen to? And these are great conversations. It's about getting that first, person to click on that, conversation. And after that, whether it's a cricket fan, they're hooked to like 22 yarns, whether it's a fan for a great conversation, you're hooked to like No Filter. Otherwise, you're hooked to like all the other shows out there. So it's just about, somehow we need to like translate that audience and just like make them make that switch just a little more, which I'm sure Amarjit and the likes of him can do.
Amarjit, so talking about audiences, we also have, in case of podcasts, a few years ago, people used to say that, if somebody's listening to a podcast, hey, he's come from the US, So are we seeing, audio streaming actually penetrate into all parts of India? And are we going to see success in the regional languages, for instance? Because we don't hear a lot of regional language podcasts.
Yeah, I think that's a very there's a question you can talk for hours on this, because there's so much to talk about there. If I look at the perspective from India, I think my estimate is that India should have, the numbers which keep flying here and there are in too many millions, but I think I would say that 120 million or approximately unique audio listeners in this market. When I say unique, maybe there are different platforms, somebody has their own numbers, but that's against a population of 1.3 billion, against a TAM of total addressable market in India of about 500 to 600 million internet users. So I think we are still very early overall, not only in podcasts, but in terms of overall streaming market right now. And I think that's the reason when Spotify, as we came in last year, we not been about 17, 18 months, people thought we are coming late, but I think that we thought we are not very late. And it's proven that we are not very late, because the market is still opening up in a big way. So if I look at what we have seen from data, from our data and from others that we heard, still the metros and the tier 1 cities, in a way dominate the consumption of streaming. And I think they are more evolved. That's where the major thing is happening. If you look at the segment of users who are on streaming, it's about the 18 to 34 segment, which is probably streaming the most. Globally, the biggest consumer of podcasts is the millennials, 25 to 34. In India, I think what I think is the first stage which is happening right now, and we've seen that for ourselves also, is that yes, you're right. I think that it's a more evolved users typically who have gone on to podcasting. For them, it's about discovering that personality. They must be reading about them through books or videos or following them and so on. But I think there's a interesting wave which has already started. I think it started in not a very structured way, but there have been these few shows maybe over the last few years. But now, like we have done about 17, 18 originals by now. Okay, we are coming up with more. There are other platforms also making originals as such. So I think the content that people are making in the market now as streaming platforms, and what are we thinking ahead, that is going more local, much, much more local. So we are not looking to create international content. That said, I think a lot of that local content could still be in English, because some of these shows, I think we are still making in English. But that's fine. As long as the content is local, I think the language doesn't really matter at this stage. But as we go further, I think we are going to official languages. I mean, you can't really touch India if you just scrape on English all the time. So you have to go down and go to different languages. And I think at Spotify, we already started going deeper, and Hindi has been something that we've done enough now. And I don't want to go talk about future, but I think you will see Spotify over the years think about how we go local. And I hope a lot of that content will come up. The more exciting part for us, I think, as such, is that before we reach out to everybody, and I don't think we can produce 5,000 shows, it's monumental effort to produce that kind of a thing. What we're also doing parallelly is that stimulate the ecosystem in a way that we provide tools to people. Like I think we just heard Neha talk about how she did a podcast from home. And so working from home has actually opened up, an avenue, and people want self-serve tools. And luckily, Spotify has a tool called Anchor, which a company we bought about a year and a half, 2 years back, which today is the best tool for producing, creating content, creating, distributing, and monetizing. So demonetizing is not big in India right now, but creating and distributing, you can actually create a podcast on Anchor. And that could be a faster way for us to reach to everybody in the country through different languages. And we're already seeing that. We've activated over the last 8-9 months. We've done some interesting virtual training sessions and so on. And we have seen some immense talent coming out. And I think we are excited about that part of the journey also. So overall, I think objective here is very clearly that we want to go down and see how best we can come out, bring talent out. Somewhere we'll go down and do originals. And then somewhere we'll go out there and just stimulate creating the creators out there. And I think at this stage, I think all I can say is that the market is looking interesting because there is a time in people's hand. Of course, people are working from home. There are two perspectives always there. Some people think that every day is a weekend. Some people think every day is a weekday. So it depends on who wants to make every day a weekday. Then you have 2 extra days of working, which people are doing. And there are a lot of people who are actually becoming creators over the weekends, over the extra nights they're spending. Of course, there are people who are wanting to have fun all the time. That's also great. And for them, there's enough content to consume. So in a way, I think that's how the market is opening. And I'm very excited about how the audio has actually embraced the change in the whole scenario in the country.
So Neha, I'm going to squeeze in one last question for you. Is there something that you really want to do in the audio space that you have been thinking you haven't been able to do and would really like to go and do going ahead?
Believe it or not, I really want to, of course, do many more shows as a producer and somebody who I'd like to say that I got my first break because I love to talk, but that's not true. I may be misunderstood sometimes. I want to make my husband make the switch. Like as a producer, I want to produce a show and he has so many, like I keep telling him, because he has so many avenues that he can talk about, whether it's sport or whether, he has such a great hold on Punjabi as a language. He has such a great hold on music. And I keep telling him, come on, do it. And then, as a producer, it'll give me one more reason to boss over him.
Great. So, I think our time's up on this. So wonderful talking to you guys, and I'm sure we can keep talking when it's we're talking about audio.
Yeah.
Thank you guys.
Thank you so much.
No, thank you so much.
Nandagopal said, if I switch off the camera, I think we'll get to hear more stories. I think all in all, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you, Amarjit. Thank you so much, Neha. Thanks,
Thank you,
Nandagopal, for a great session. For our audience, I think after you've listened to this whole session, the great recipe for a podcast/audio, according to me, now would be total freedom, unlike video. Content is everything, like Neha and Amarjit both have said. Be consistent and just club it with a great host or a creator, and there you have a great audio or a podcast show.
Also right before leaving, I may have not said this if we were in season 1 or season 2, but now because we're in season 5, I just feel like people have become so cynical and so critical about every word that comes out of everyone's mouth. My only request is when you're consuming audio or video, I just want everyone to lighten up a little bit. Like take things in good humor.
That's a great quote. Any last passing quotes, Amarjit? We are really off the time. We only have last 30 seconds.
No, I think it's great that you guys are talking about this amazing topic. We can talk all day. I'm looking forward to more and more creators, and whoever is listening to it and have great ideas, come and talk to us. We are happy to help you become a creator and start your own podcast.
Super. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Nandagopal, and thank you, Amarjit. It was
Thank
lovely.
you.
Thank you,
Nice
Latika.
meeting you
Bye.
guys.
Thank you.
Bye.